This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show. I am Bax.
And this is Grant.
Grant, we were having a bit of a dance party to kick off the show today. I love that song.
It was a little choreographed, too. We got it going.
We had a little two-step and clap and a little bit that way and a spin around. And oh my goodness, just a good old time this morning on the Wednesday edition of the Bax and Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. Grant, we are in day 2 of our excitement that we are now in Sports Radio America, and we had a great reception about how everything went on Monday, and wow, I'm excited. I'm really excited, Grant, and I know that we've got a few different ways that people can check us out too, can't they?
Yeah, we can. You can listen in on TuneIn, Live 365, Spreaker at these times, iTunes, and SRA.com.
Yep, sportsradioamerica.com. You can check us out there. We do broadcast on TuneIn from Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern, so you can check us out there. Our show is on repeat for 3 times, so if you can't take us once or twice or even 3 times, we're there. You can hear us as many times as you want. You can hear Grant's soft, sultry voice as many times as you'd like. You can go to Spreaker. You can download it there. You can check us out on iTunes as well. But then if you want to interact with us, Grant, there's 2 different options people can check us out as well. They can find us on Facebook at the Bax and Grant Sports Show.
Right.
And then they can follow us on Twitter at BG Sports Show as well.
Right. And wasn't it on Sports Radio America, they can go to the schedule?
Yes.
And check our times out on the schedule. And I believe, was it on the homepage as well?
Or yep, they're in the process of adding our information to the homepage as well. So if you go to the sportsradioamerica.com website, don't freak out if you don't see our stuff right away. We are there. You got to dig around a little bit, but because we are a newer show on the network, they're in the process of making a page for us and restructuring their site as well. So we're very grateful to everyone there. That has been very welcoming to us,
right.
And we are really excited to continue on here at Sports Radio America for as long as God wills, Grant, right?
Right. I mean, we're very excited to be here.
We are. We very much are. And we've got a great show for you today. We have all kinds of stuff today, Grant. We've got a mixture of some basketball and some football stuff going on, some controversy as well that we want to get to. And then at the end of the show, both Connor Christensen and Megan Landvatter will stop by and talk about their respective teams' free agent needs, the Vikings and the Packers.
And some interesting verses today as well, like... You'll just see.
Yeah,
we'll get to it.
We've got some good stuff coming up for you. But Grant, before we get the show rolling today, I did want to ask you the Sports Center question of the day.
All right.
Sports Center question of the day, brought to you by Sports Center, obviously, on my little desk, courtesy of my desk calendar. So, Grant, which team won back-to-back NBA titles in between the Chicago Bulls' 6 championships?
I'm going to go with the Celtics.
That is incorrect. It was the Houston Rockets.
Really?
They won it in 94 and 95.
That's something... You did say you wouldn't expect it, and I did not expect that.
When I read the answer there, I was like, oh, I didn't honestly realize the Rockets had ever won a championship. So good for you guys in Houston. That's exciting news. But, Grant, when you think of your childhood, you think of growing up, you think of playing hockey, you played hockey,
right.
But... From just a traditional, young child growing up playing sports, there's that one thing that you just always have to do as a kid, and that's play Little League.
Well, I did that as well.
Did you?
Yes,
you did
it wasn't just all hockey with me. I did play Little League. I was a catcher.
See, my mom despises baseball, so I wasn't allowed to play baseball. Even though I was decent at it, I was not allowed to play baseball, unfortunately, just because she said it was the most boring sport to ever be in existence. And I always joked with her, I'm like, well, Mom, what if I get really good at baseball? Would you ever come to my games? And she would say no, but I know that she would come because I'm her baby. She would come. But, Grant, what the heck is going on in Chicago?
Well, the Little League baseball team from the Chicago area that represented the Great Lakes District in the World Series that ended up winning the U.S. title, lost the international title, but won the U.S. title, was accused of pulling in players from their district. Or from outside their district,
like Hunger Games districts, or like a little different than that?
Little different than the Hunger Games district. What's with you and the Hunger Games?
What's wrong with the Hunger Games?
Well, this is sports, not the Hunger Games. But anyway, the Las Vegas district, who Chicago played, questioned questioned the Chicago team, and Little League went in, looked, and as of last night, no decision was made, but just happened this morning, about, I would say, within the last hour.
Wow.
The decision was made that the title was going to be pulled from the Chicago team, which... And another thing I should mention that a lot of people are making a big deal is well, it's not a big deal. It's just the identity of the team that it was the first all African American team to win for the U.S.
Oh.
So there's a little controversy there as well. Some people question Las Vegas if they pulled any players from the district. Little League went in and checked. They didn't. But I think Las Vegas handled it well. They said the game was played. We lost.
Yeah.
Not even though it wasn't really fair and
This
square.
wasn't like Deflategate for Little League, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. I
It
just
was
want to
like
make sure.
Las Vegas went in there, said, we think there's something fishy going on. If you take away the title, that's fine, but we don't want the title.
Sure.
Like, they didn't want to take it and give it to them. They're
Yeah.
like, the game's over. We're over it. Let's move on. We just want to make sure that it doesn't happen again to other kids. So, a little bit of controversy, especially because of the race of the team, and that it was like the big story was like it's more African American kids are coming up in the sport, and it's a big deal, and then have this to happen. It kind of tarnished that fun little roller coaster ride that they had.
And they had the opportunity to meet President Obama as well.
They did.
So that I'm sure was a huge memory for a lot of those kids, and it's something you grow up to. You want to play baseball. You want to win your Little League championship, whether it's in your city or statewide. But this team took it nationally, and then got the opportunity, like we said, to meet President Obama, which not every team gets to go do.
No.
You have to be pretty darn good or win something significant to get an audience with the president.
Right, and it's like winning the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup. That's when you get to go see him, and
Yeah.
you're playing on national television on ESPN. So that's a pretty big deal
That
to a
is a
lot of
huge
these kids,
deal.
and to have this happen, it's really embarrassing.
It
It's kind
is.
of unfortunate to see, because it's not like these kids said, "Oh yeah, I have an idea. Let's go get Jimmy from across the river."
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably some parents and coaches in a back room,
That's a big
handing
yeah.
like handing players back and forth and trying to make a dream team. So it was a little unfortunate this morning.
It is, yeah, and I don't think the kids will really suffer. I think the parents will, in terms of like they're the one, like legally.
Right.
The kids obviously will suffer in a different way because they probably had no idea. They're usually too young to really be conspirators in terms of what's going on with all of that. But it's some sad news for those kids, and I hope that they are able to still recover from it and put together a good program again in the coming years. But Grant, I'm very excited, Grant.
Why are you excited?
Can you hear this in my voice, my excitement?
I can hear it in your voice.
Okay, I'm excited because Brett Favre is coming back to Green Bay, Grant.
Woo!
That's why I'm excited. He has finally decided to come back to Lambeau Field, and they are going to induct him into the Packers Hall of Fame. Thank the Lord. Praise Jesus. Hallelujah. That's the show for today. I'm not. No, anyway.
So Baxter's left.
Yeah, so it's now the Grant Sports Show. But Brett Favre is coming back. They have already... It's just going to be the biggest pomp and circumstance next to the Packers. I think winning the Super Bowl, that's how big this event is going to be at Lambeau Field, Grant. And Favre said he doesn't want to get introduced in the atrium, the huge Packers atrium. He wants to have the ceremony in the stadium.
Which is really awesome, like in front of fans, and kind of in an atrium. It's kind of like a little more closed off. It's kind of, more formal, harder to get into, in my opinion. But if you have it on the field, you can just pack people in and just have cheer of the crowd.
They could have 80,000 people there, which Packer fans are crazy, Grant. You might pack that stadium full of people. The induction ceremony is set for July 8th. It was originally going to be in the atrium, like we said, but Favre has voiced that he does want to do it in the stadium. There's no official word yet of what exactly they want to do, but they are hoping, and Favre is hoping, that they can do it in the stadium instead of the atrium. The atrium can only hold about 1,600 people. I worked at Lambeau Field last year and got a chance to work for the Hall of Fame introduction last year. Got to see Ahman Green and a lot of those guys. And that stadium, or that atrium, was packed full of people, and it was an amazing time just being able to be at the event and work for it. But for a guy like Brett Favre, no disrespect to Ahman Green, and I can't even remember the offensive lineman that they introduced as well, but Brett Favre is on a whole nother level than Ahman Green, and he deserves the type of respect that he should get by having the stadium open to it instead of just the atrium.
Oh, and I also see here, which I was going to ask if they were going to do or not, but they're also going to be retiring his number. So
rightfully so. They need to.
Right. So in the next couple of years, it's going to be looking pretty big. He looks like he's going to get in the Hall of Fame sometime next year.
He should be a first balloter. I don't understand.
Yeah,
why he
and then
be.
That's next. It says Hall of Fame in 2016. So the next 2 years, he should be in the Packers and then in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So
those are big milestones for Favre after his career didn't exactly end the way he wanted it to.
Right.
It was a little bit you can call malice from Packer fans, and I still know Packer fans that resent Favre for leaving, and
when it wasn't really his fault.
No, it wasn't. Favre wasn't the one that was like, I want to leave.
No, it was more of his shenanigans and saying, if I'm going to leave, am I not going to leave, and then
and then he retires and comes back,
right? And then the organization was just like, okay, we're done. It kind of looked like Favre was just trying to get out of doing camp, and so they were just like they cut their ways, and so I think that's what rubbed Packer fans the wrong way. But it wasn't anything I Brett Favre. I really hope he gets cheers. I would slap anybody that boos him in
you hear that, Packer
Lambeau
fans?
Field.
Grant's coming for you if you don't give Favre the respect he deserves. Well, we're going to take a fast break. When we come back, we've got some crazy action in college basketball, and we're going to talk about Beast Mode. Don't go anywhere. This is the Baxter Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. Welcome back to the Baxter Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
We are back in the studio, Grant. We are having a good time. You were breaking it down as you always do during the break.
Every day.
Every day. You drop it like it's hot?
Well, not necessarily.
Do you turn
like
down
that.
for what, Grant?
I'm an old man. My back hurts.
I have like 3 years on you, Grant. Don't even give me the old man status because you have a
I have a wife and kid. That gives me the old man status.
You're gonna come into the show on Friday with a cane and gray hair and be like, "Oh, I'm ready for the show." Be like, "Okay, all right, sounds good, Grant." But Grant, there's an interesting debate that we've been having between ourselves. Coach Greg Popovich just won his thousandth game as the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. And the press is interesting, Grant. It's not as pomp and circumstance as we saw Coach K do for Duke, who just got his 1,000th win. I believe it was just last week or the week before. Now, I posed this question to you before the show, Grant, but I'm going to ask it to you again. Whose resume is more impressive?
And I mean, I guess that's kind of a fair question, but at the same time, it's kind of separate because college basketball and NBA basketball, even though they're the same sport, they're a couple different things with how fast sometimes the game runs, how long the shot clock you have. So there's a couple different ticky-tack things that you could say that might separate the two from how games are played. But I think one big thing to point out, though, is Coach Pop. He has won all of his games with the Spurs. Mm-hmm. Not a single team. Even though Coach K has won the vast majority with Duke, he has not won all of them with Duke. But
that feat alone is impressive.
Yeah, it is. And so I think that still puts both coaches on the same tier. I think one thing that might separate them is that Pop has 5 wins, 5 final wins, mm-hmm. and Coach K has 4. Which you could also then argue,
what has more value,
right? Or what's harder to get into? Because to win college final, you have to play through a whole tournament,
a 64-team bracket, which makes it much more difficult. Where the NBA finals are, you could almost make an argument that they are even harder because you have to go through grueling 5 to 7 game series, which you're going to end up playing more games in the NBA playoffs than you are the tournament.
But then you can afford having a bad game.
Yes.
As in the March Madness tournament, if you have one bad game, you're done.
Yeah, you have to be on all minutes of all games, no matter what. Even during the timeouts, you have to make sure you drink your water appropriately so you don't, mess up. It's just that's how crucial it is for college basketball. And you said, Grant, that Coach Popovich, this is the 9th NBA coach in history to do it.
Right.
Potentially another reason why Coach Pop, as we like to call him, isn't getting as much press, and he just kind of seems so blasé about it, like, yep, I won 1,000 games as a head coach.
Whereas when Coach K won, they had T-shirts, and there
did.
was like all this big blown-up press about it. But yeah, another interesting thing that I found, there's if you have a chance to go see it, go on ESPN.com. It's by the numbers. They did a cool little thing. They just break this all down for you, and they set it up all nice and pretty. So if you like pictures and graphs, it's something cool to look at. But the only time Coach Pop did not make the finals was when he picked up the
playoffs.
When he didn't make the playoffs.
Yes.
He subbed in as coach. It looks like to the end of the season.
Okay.
So that's the only time he did not make the playoffs. Any other time he has made the playoffs every single season.
So he won the finals back in 1998. That was his first finals. Then he won it in 2002, 2004, and then most recently 2006, and then as well in 2013. So the man is dang good. He is really, really good. And I think, would you make the argument that he is probably the best coach in NBA history?
I wouldn't say in history because there are so many coaches. There's 8 other coaches that have more wins than him,
Yes.
and people are going to base it off of that. But currently, he has the most wins of any coach since 96, 97.
Wow. So since he's been in the league.
Yeah, so since he's been in the league, no coach has had more wins. So currently, right now, I would say yes, but of all time, I would say not really.
And you made an interesting point, too, Grant, that he has an above 500 average against every single NBA team, which is not an easy feat to do.
Right, because there's always going to be that one team that is good. And then you could also make the argument that, say, some teams are good for 5 years, and then for another couple years, they're not so good. But then you can make that same argument for the Spurs, but he has always put them in the playoffs, and they're always a good team. So to go in and always play at top caliber and never have a losing record against a team, that's pretty impressive.
That is incredibly impressive, Grant. But one other thing we thought was interesting that should be talked about in college basketball before we jump over to the NFL again was that Kentucky had a bit of a scare last night, Grant. They didn't lose, so they still have the perfect record, but an unranked team in LSU gave them a big run for their money, Grant.
Right, and LSU was playing a fantastic game for the most part. It was pretty close in the half, or pretty close during the first half, and then Kentucky ran away with it for a little bit, and I believe they were up by 13 points at one time, but then there was a technical foul by Karl Anthony Towns from Kentucky. He hung on the rim during the play. He was going up for a dunk, and then the dunk got blocked. It was actually a really impressive defensive play.
Wow.
And then he was hanging on the rim, and one of his teammates went and tipped it in, and he was still hanging on the rim because he
just chilling.
He
like,
slammed,
hey,
and then he pulled up when he could have gone down, and so that's why they called the technical on him. And then his coaches got on him right away, sat him down, and was just mad. And then that kind of changed the tide. LSU, I believe, went on a 21-2 run after that point, which really brought them back into it. They actually were leading by 6 points.
Wow.
And Kentucky then fought back. LSU kept on missing some key shots. And then it was just all she wrote. But it was a really close game.
What was the final score? Was 71-69, correct?
71-69. It went into the final seconds. There was a final play that it was on an inbounds pass. It wasn't really set up correctly, so there was just kind of like a lob for a 3-point with about a couple seconds left to see if they could get a rebound and put it back up for 2 to at least tie the game.
Sure.
But it was a great game. LSU used its big guys down low for some leverage. Then they kind of went away with that, and then that's why they started falling behind. And then they turned up again at the end of the game. So it was a good fight by LSU, but I think, in my opinion, that's Kentucky's last big threat in the end of the season. So it's looking like Kentucky could go be be going into the tournament undefeated this year.
Yeah, and if you take a look at it, too, from a statistical and analytical point, you can understand that whoever Kentucky plays the rest of the season, they need to watch this game film, and they need to study this. Because if you see, I mean, they only won by 2 points, Grant. It's not like, LSU ran all over them or Kentucky ran over LSU. You need to study the film. You need to analyze what LSU did appropriately, because LSU is no top flight, crazy good team. Yeah, they're 17-7. They're 6-5 in the SEC. That's good. That's great. That's a comparable record. But if you play Kentucky the rest of the way through, or even once you get to the tournament, study this LSU film and realize, okay, something happened here where you can beat this team. We saw that even like going to the NFL with when the Seattle Seahawks would really go to the Denver Broncos or the Patriots, and they would get upset by kind of a no-name, sometimes random team. And then opposing teams would have to go and have to play them next week and potentially beat them again because it's like, oh, we found how to exploit this team.
Right.
So once you figure out how to do that, you need to be able to jump on that and to capitalize accordingly. And I think LSU was maybe just a play or two away, like you said, from winning this game.
Right. And the announcers made a really good point during the game that even though this was pretty close, it's good for Kentucky because to get to the finals and to win the finals, you're not going to avoid having games like this. So when it's good, to blow out teams and good for your confidence, but you need to be put in these stressful game-type situations. And we've seen Kentucky do that a couple times this season to dig themselves out of a hole and pull out wins. So that's what I think makes them a high-caliber team because they are able to do that. So even though this is a close one for them, they still get a win. And overall, this is a very good experience for them.
Yes. Well, Grant, it is time for Grant's Rant on our show today. All right, for those that don't know, Grant's Rant is the part of the show where Grant gets 30 seconds to rant about anything he wants in the sports world, and all I have to do is sit here and keep time and yell at him to stop. But other than that, I have no control. I have no previous knowledge of what he's going to rant about, so if he's going to talk about you, my apologies. If not, well, whatever. It's Grant. I can't stop him. So, Grant, are you ready?
I am ready.
30 seconds on the clock. Get set. Go!
So LeBron James tweeted out a tweet a couple days ago that said, "Stop finding a way to fit out and just fit in." Fit out was said by Kevin Love earlier this preseason, and so it kind of seemed like LeBron James was taking a shot, and he came out and said, "No, I only talk to my players in private and my teammates," and Kevin Love said he was a little bit shocked. But I was like, honestly, LeBron, you seriously think we're going to buy that? Really? If you're going to be open to your teammates on Twitter, you need to be able to control yourself and, talk to them in private because you're just airing your dirty laundry for everybody to see it.
Well, that's what the sports world is nowadays, Grant. If I don't like you, I'm not going to tell you to your face. I'm going to go on Twitter and trash you and throw a bad meme at you and just call you a doo-doo head. That's what I think of you, Grant.
Yeah, but thank you.
No,
thank you.
I don't mean that, of course. No. I never would say anything slanderous about you, but...
but this is professional sports. You have to keep it professional. And LeBron James wasn't keeping it professional.
Exactly. All right, we're going to take a fast break. When we come back, we were going to talk some NFL free agency. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
We have the distinct pleasure, Grant, of having two of our favorite people in the studio with us now. We have Megan Landvater and Connor Christensen in the studio with us. Connor, we're going to have you come on in here first. Connor, as some of you may or may not know, is a Minnesota Vikings fan through and through. And you've been a lifelong Vikings fan, haven't you, Connor?
I have.
And you're proud to say that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
That's right.
All right, so the last part of the show here today, we are focusing on the NFL free agency, and Connor's going to give us some of the free agents that are currently out on the market that the Vikings should try to pursue, whether it's re-signing players on the team that are free agents or just free agents from other teams that the Vikings could sign to help better their roster going into next season. So, Connor, what do you got for us?
Okay, so to many people's great surprise, I am not going to focus on, or the two main positions I'm going to focus on are the two lines on either side of the ball, the offensive line
Okay.
and the defensive line. I think that all of these other positions are pretty much taken care of. They're young, they're growing, they will learn their ways and be good in years to come, in my opinion, I think.
So who's your first guy up?
My first guy up is a guard from San Francisco, Mike Iupati. I think that's how you say his last name.
I'm not 100% sure.
Not entirely sure.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, he's been a solid guard at San Francisco. Some of the reasons why they've had success, maybe not last year, but in years previous, they have had a lot of success. So I think adding a guard would be great because the offensive line of Minnesota is definitely lacking.
Okay.
The second guy is Jason Pierre-Paul from the Giants. He in 2012 and 13, he was suffering from injuries, so he did not have as explosive of years. But at the end of 2014, he caught his stride again with 9 sacks in the last 5 games, and I think he's going to move into next year with a lot of strength, a lot of power. So I think adding him to the line at Minnesota would be very helpful.
Okay. Now, obviously, Minnesota, they lost Jared Allen last season.
Yeah.
And their pass rush was not quite the same. Their defense didn't play terrible.
No, the defense didn't play terrible. And that's why I just think that you don't necessarily have to rebuild everything. Just adding a guy in there who's able to penetrate through the offensive line to get a sack or two, just to get the offense kind of scared almost so that momentum can shift in Minnesota's way. And then once the momentum shifts, then the guys like Brian Robeson will be able to rush in there and just terrorize the quarterback.
Okay. Do the Vikings need to invest in two questions. Do the Vikings need to invest in a backup for Teddy Bridgewater, and do they need to add more depth to the wide receiver spot?
A backup for Teddy Bridgewater, that is a wonderful question.
Or are you content with Matt Castle? And Christian Ponder?
Well, Christian Ponder's a free agent.
Oh, so hopefully they won't resign him.
I doubt Minnesota has any desire to bring him back.
Probably not.
Probably not. I wouldn't.
I don't know why he's even on NFL roster.
If Matt Castle is healthy, I am content with a Matt Castle.
Okay.
Because at the worst of times, he's a veteran in every sense of the word, so I think that he's a solid pick for a backup.
Okay. And then a wide receiver, you've got Greg Jennings, you've got Cordell Patterson, you've got Charles Johnson, Jarius Wright. I'm surprised I can even name 4 Vikings wide receivers.
It's because you room with me. Yeah.
That's what it is. Okay. Well, are you content with the Viking receivers, or do you need to go draft somebody or maybe find a middle-of-the-road guy, or what are you thinking?
I wouldn't say that you necessarily have to test the free agent market with it. I would definitely see like drafting one, but I think Greg Jennings being able to not only be a consistent wide receiver that's able to catch the ball, sure he's not as athletic as he used to be in years past, but I think as a player he still understands the position better than a lot of players that play currently.
Yes. Yep.
So I would say having 2 really young guys like Charles Johnson and Cordero Patterson, to have a leader like Greg Jennings, someone who can say, well, maybe you should try doing this, or next time do it differently. I think that's really helpful for young wide receivers.
So I have an interesting question for you, Connor.
Okay.
You always do, Grant.
Yes.
What is going to be your prediction for the Vikings this coming NFL season if they field a team that they have right now, if they pick up the 2 players that you said they should?
Well, I also was told 3 players, so I actually
do have a third. That's fine.
I do have a third player, so let me
let the man finish.
Third player, and then we'll go. I am choosing Brandon Flowers from the Chargers.
Sure.
He's a cornerback. I was actually fairly impressed with the secondary of Minnesota this past season. However, I think adding a veteran quarterback would add a sense of leadership that the Minnesota secondary does not currently have. So,
because you do have good guys, you've got Harrison Smith in there, and then you've got oh my gosh, I can't
Xavier Rhodes.
Xavier Rhodes,
he's kind of the main other guy.
He is, yeah. He's only a second-year player as well. Well, he'll be a third-year guy this year.
So, and that's the cornerback that they used against Calvin Johnson in the Minnesota Detroit game.
Yep.
Johnson didn't really do much that game. So, there's a lot of talent. I think having some direction would be very helpful for the secondary. Refresh me on your question.
How is the Vikings regular season going to go? What's your prediction on their record?
A way too early prediction.
Yeah,
yes,
way too early prediction.
That's the best way to phrase this question.
Well, okay, because that depends on a lot of things.
Like their schedule and if they pick up certain people.
And also other teams. Like, for right now, I'm assuming that Green Bay is going to win the division again. Because Green Bay is Green Bay. There's no way that they're not going to win the division. So the Lions become the question. What happens to the Lions during the offseason? Do they re-sign Ndamukong Suh? Because that's a really big factor. If they don't sign Ndamukong Suh, their defense is really, really hurt.
He's going to
by
Seattle. That's the rumor.
Yeah, well, Minnesota doesn't want him. That's the one player I'll say that I don't want on Minnesota.
That you don't want or
Nope.
Minnesota doesn't want? There's the difference.
Big question.
That I don't want.
Oh, okay.
That I don't want.
Gotcha.
Bad press, don't need him. Anyway, so if the Lions don't re-sign him, that hurts the defense a lot. I mean, he's one player, so it's not going to be win-lose based on if he's playing or not, but I think psychologically it does matter to have him for them or not.
Okay.
So I will say that I can tentatively guarantee that the Vikings will be more of a contender than they were this past year. So what I mean by that is they went 7-9.
Yep. Right.
And I think they will do better than 7-9.
So they'll at least break 500
I think so.
Yeah.
for the first time since they had Brett Favre.
Thank you for that.
There
You're
it is.
welcome.
A
Thanks for
little
that.
jab in the side by Grant.
You're just waiting to throw that in there.
Little
I can
elbow
see-
jab.
see it in your face.
Oh,
It's like
my
he's about
goodness.
to backhand me here in a second.
Okay, well, Connor, we thank you for stopping by the show today. We look forward to hearing your fitness tip on the show on Friday.
Yep.
For those of you that don't know, Connor stops by the show on Fridays and offers his weekly fitness tip for you. So make sure to tune in on Friday to hear what Connor's got to say. So thanks again, Connor, for stopping by, and we'll see you again on Friday.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. All right, Megan. We have Megan Landvater in studio now, our Green Bay Packers expert. She almost makes us look like we don't even...
Right.
Do we even follow the Packers, Grant?
Who are the Packers?
I don't even know, because according to what Megan's knowledge is, I feel like I'm a preschooler with everything she knows. But Megan, the free agent status, the Packers, there's the confusion with Brian Bulaga, Randall Cobb. Do you go and get a backup quarterback? There's all these variables flying around. What are you making sense of all this going on with the Packers?
All right. Well, first of all, with Ted Thompson being the general manager that he is, free agency is not really Thompson's style. He generally goes for the draft. So I'm not expecting him to do anything crazy here. But I would like to see him sign Randall Cobb. I think it's important for our passing game to have Randall Cobb. If you look at our Super Bowl year and look at our receiving core, which was Greg Jennings, Donald Driver, Jordy Nelson, Jermichael Finley, and James Jones were all in there.
Not a bad squad if you ask anybody.
No. And now we're down to really Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, both who are great receivers, but we don't really have another huge big-name threat in there.
You don't believe in Jared Boykin or Devontae?
No, I think they have talent, but can they replace Randall Cobb? Can they?
No.
No,
And depending, although as Aberderis is coming back next season,
Right. I
because
really
was
hope he
injured
does
all
good,
Yeah.
honestly.
season.
That would be nice to see. But I fear that if we get rid of Randall Cobb, suddenly defenses are only really going to be threatened by Jordy Nelson, and I think that could be a problem for our offense, at least initially. The second free agent I would like to see them sign is Brian Bulaga.
Yep.
Because, the offensive line really had a stellar year, something that we haven't seen in a while. They did an excellent job protecting Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is obviously incredibly important to this organization. So I don't see why you would take a gamble and get rid of someone on his offensive line, considering how important his health is.
And Rodgers was only sacked 5 times in 2014.
Yeah.
So that feed within itself, it led to him only throwing 5 interceptions as well. Granted, not all 5 were his fault. But either way, though, when a quarterback, it's traditionally known, when a quarterback has less time in the pocket, they're going to make more rash decisions and not effectively. And we saw Rodgers have plenty of time and have an MVP caliber year.
Right, and if you watch some of the Packer games, they would actually start putting a clock on how many seconds Rodgers had because it was just kept going and going. So
it was disgusting at times how much time he had.
Well, and then to the point where Aaron Rodgers went, I believe it was around Christmas time, went and bought them all huge TVs and iPads just to kind of say thank you for...
A little pat on the back, be like, thanks, guys. Thanks for keeping me alive.
And here, I'll take my MVP.
Yeah, right. I'm sure they got a nice little something, too.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for Brian Bulaga to be signed. And then my third one is actually Rolando McClain, who is from the Dallas Cowboys. He is an inside linebacker. And
Grant just threw up behind you because you said Dallas Cowboys.
But, because Clay Matthews was kind of switching around his position a little bit. He played a little bit of the inside linebacker position. I think it would be good to see him go back to his natural position of outside linebacker, opposite of Julius Peppers, and then to put someone in the inside position, who is effective. And Rolando McClain had a really nice season with the Dallas Cowboys. So I think just adding to that part of the defense would be good for the Packers.
Well, an interesting thing that you can maybe think of would be having somebody that is either interested in switching or is known for switching, or you see the potential with switching with Matthews, and then you could switch those two high-caliber players and keep offensive lines guessing, keep the quarterback guessing, and I think that would be a deadly combo if Green Bay can figure that out.
Yeah, that would definitely be an asset for the Packers defensively. And I believe Baxter's going to want to talk about the Green Bay Packers backup quarterback position.
I would love to, Megan. I'm so glad you brought that up because you and I had this heated discussion last night that Matt Flynn is not the answer if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, and Scott Tolzien, as much as I'm Team Scott. If I had to pick a Team Edward or a Team Jacob, I'm Team Scott. That's how much I am for between these two guys. But there is an interesting article in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel today. I had too much coffee this morning. My lips can't keep up with the rest of my brain. But anyway, there's a quarterback from South Alabama that is turning a lot of heads. Now, obviously, in this year's draft, Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston are the two headline acts. Everyone's going all in, even though Winston doesn't deserve to play in the NFL, in my opinion, after all of his off-the-field issues. But there's a guy, Grant, that can throw the ball 69 yards in the air. Just in the air.
I can do that.
Can you?
No, not really.
I didn't think so. Okay, his name is Brandon Bridge. Now, you remember the man named Michael Vick?
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Okay.
I remember that man.
Not the dog-fighting Michael Vick. The Madden, what was it, 2006 or something like that, Michael Vick, where he was the best player in Madden history, where he ran all over everybody and could throw the ball and redefine the mobile quarterback as a whole, basically,
Yes.
Michael Vick? Okay,
Yeah.
That's kind of what Bridge is. So think about that for a second.
The modern-day Michael Vick.
He wears number 7, so there's that. But, I mean, you can...
He's
you
got
can-
it done.
you
He's
can-
done.
That's
He's
all you
done.
need.
Best quarterback ever.
I wear number 20 when I play soccer. That obviously means I'm, like Brian McBride or Taylor Twellman, which explains why I don't know. That didn't work out for me, so I don't really know why that worked, But Bridge is the type of quarterback that has been getting courted by the Packers for this entire last season. They've gone down to South Alabama twice to meet with him and to scout him. And then they also were looking at him and talked to him heavily at the NFL Players Association Collegiate Bowl game as well. So I don't want to necessarily say the Packers are going to draft a quarterback, but the Packers look like they're going to draft a quarterback, and it's probably going to be Bridge because I guarantee you not too many NFL teams are looking at this guy going, oh, yeah, I mean, he plays at South Alabama. I'm not trying to dog the program that South Alabama is because they're not very well known.
Right.
When you live in Alabama, it's Alabama.
Right.
It's the Crimson Tide. Roll Tide.
Tide.
Exactly. That's it. And then you look at South Alabama and you're like, who? It just no one understands who that is. So we need to do a little bit more research on him. But at the same time, he looks to have good skills. And he prides himself on saying that he has the strongest arm and is the most mobile quarterback in this year's draft class, which is a lot to say compared to the Heisman Trophy winner of this season, Marcus Mariota, and the Heisman Trophy winner last year, Jameis Winston.
Right, but we also had an interesting conversation at the beginning of the show, or before the show, excuse me, about if the Packers really needed another backup quarterback. As we were saying, we really like Tolzien. We think he's going to be decent enough for a backup quarterback. You can get rid of Flynn because he's done, in my opinion.
Let him go.
He did great for us when we needed him.
Is that the right word? He did great. He did good enough, Grant.
What did he have? Like 6 touchdown passes in one game?
He had one game.
Is that good enough?
That is the
But for a
stereotypical
backup,
Packers
but for a
thing, though,
backup
for Flynn.
quarterback, for a backup quarterback, and he almost beat the Patriots.
It was the Detroit Lions, Grant.
Yeah, it was the Detroit Lions, but what did they still did the same thing.
I suppose, yes.
We still won that game, and they almost beat the Patriots.
And then Flynn goes off and gets a $10 million contract with the Seahawks and sits on the bench. He loses his job to Russell Wilson, and then he goes to Oakland, the black pit of hell that is the NFL, and can't even get a starting job there. He's not good, Grant.
Right, I'm not saying he's great, but I'm saying he was great in that game. But
One
now
game doesn't define a player.
I'm not saying it defined a player, but I'm saying he had a great game. Are you saying he had a good game?
I think
or
if
not
that would've-
are you saying that 6 touchdowns is not great?
against the
If
Detroit
A-
Lions, no.
If Aaron Rodgers goes out and throws 6 touchdown passes, I'm going to expect you said he played okay. And if you said he played great, I'm going to slap you.
If it's against the Detroit Lions, I'll be like, no, he didn't. I mean, that's that.
the Detroit Lions made it to the playoffs.
Not that year.
Yeah, but they made it this year, and they were
That's a
close
different-
enough in
different-
years.
different Lions
but
teams
they had
altogether.
the makings of a playoff team.
I don't know about that one. Anyway, I love you, Grant. We're not gonna keep fighting
Spur
about
of the
this.
moment
Spur
argument.
of the moment. I love it. It's getting heated. But honestly, Oakland is the black pit of hell in the NFL. I'm going to just continue to reiterate that over and over. Connor, who's still in the studio, basically fell over on the floor laughing. But moving away from Green Bay, so thank you, Megan. We don't want to say that we don't appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by. We'll see you again next week, hopefully. Grant, out in Seattle, Mr. Beast Mode, Mr. Russell Wilson, they're thinking about their contracts. The Seahawks, they lost in the Super Bowl, and now they're trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Marshawn Lynch is trying to figure out, first of all, what he wants to do. There's rumors that he might retire, which I think would be premature in his career
Right.
because I think he's still got a few good years left in the tank. And then Russell Wilson, the conundrum that is Russell Wilson. He's got a Super Bowl ring, so he's got that on his resume, which is a pretty big and shiny aspect of a resume to have as an NFL player. But now, how much, first of all, do you re-sign him if you're Seattle? Second of all, how much is he worth?
Well, I think Seattle's not going to think twice about signing him, personally. Right now, he's only making, to go off of his value, right now he's making $837,000 for a Super Bowl winning and 2-time Super Bowl appearance quarterback. That's really nice for Seattle. So,
Must be nice.
the next contract, because this is the last year of his contract. So this next year, he's projected to make $20 million a year and $100 million overall with the Seahawks if they re-sign him, which I'm saying that they probably will. Now, I don't think he deserves that. I don't think we've had this discussion before. I don't think he is a caliber of enough quarterback
No.
for that kind of money.
Did you say $100 million?
$100 million
That's-
for his entire contract.
How many years?
It would be 5 years then if he earned $20 million a year.
Sure, yeah.
So he had a
No.
5-year contract,
No.
$20 million. I don't think he's a good enough quarterback for that.
He's not. I love
And-
Russ. You're my bro. I love you, Russ. But no, you're not worth that much.
Right. He is not. He's not worth that much at all. But he said if they needed to get Marshawn Lynch back and they needed to put a little bit more money to get him back, because as we said, he is thinking of not, he would be willing to take a cut in his contract to get him there. So I do like to see that. That shows that he is a team player.
Okay.
And that he thinks team first.
Well, we will see what exactly Seattle ends up doing. Grant, it's time for What If. So, with the last 2 minutes of the show, we're going to play a little game that we like to call What If. And what Grant and I do is we give each other what if scenarios in the sports world and kind of debate on if they had or had not happened, what would have happened because of that. Mine's not that important, so keep your answer short for me because I don't care. I'm curious. I want to talk about yours, Grant. So my what if today is if Carson Palmer doesn't get hurt, do the Cardinals make it to the Super Bowl?
The Cardinals do not make it to the Super Bowl, but they change up the playoff standings because they go with a little better record than they have, so the playoffs might look a little bit different.
Okay, that's all I care about. Grant, what's your question? I'm really curious. Now, Grant, it was Christmas this morning, Grant.
Yes,
you,
it was.
You
I was Santa
revealed,
Claus today.
You revealed the most amazing thing in the world, so I don't have a lot of time left, so tell us what you found and give us what you got for us.
I found this wonderful website called whatifsports.com, and basically you could pick any historical team in any sport and match them up together. So I was like, what would happen if you took the 85 Bears versus the 72 undefeated Miami Dolphins? And
my gosh.
It was fantastic. I was like, this is the dream moment.
This is so. I don't know who would win. Somebody would win, Grant. I don't know. With not a lot of time left, tell us who wins this game based off of what whatifsports.com tells us.
Well, I played it about 6 times, and every single time that I did that, the Chicago Bears won.
Wow.
And one time...
Except for this time.
Except for this time, the Miami Dolphins...
Miami Dolphins won the game this time, 24-9, according to What If Sports.
Right, but the one time I did it, one time the Bears beat them 50-something to
Woo!
0.
I'm not going to lie, Grant. You told me about this, so right before the show started, I simulated Packers-Seahawks from this last year because you can do it all the way up till last season. And the Packers won, Grant, 19-17.
As it should have been.
Get
but,
on it.
I
Let's
mean,
go.
We're still getting over that. But I think that little thing kind of goes to show that if you have a good enough defense, the best offense in the world can overcome it, even though everybody loves the offense.
Truth. Very true. All right, well, Grant, it's been a fun show
Whirlwind
today.
of a show today.
I know. Always a whirlwind of a show. Thank you so much for checking out the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. Check us out on Twitter at BG Sports Show and on Facebook at the Bax and Grant Sports Show. From all of us here at the Bax and Grant Sports Show, I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
We'll see you guys on Friday. Have a great week, everyone.